A container ship ran into serious trouble after reportedly ignoring Iran's instructions to follow the designated Hormuz route, with sources saying the vessel's decision to deviate triggered immediate repercussions from regional authorities. The vessel ran aground while attempting to bypass the Iranian-controlled route, becoming stranded and creating a hazardous situation that disrupted nearby navigation and prompted a swift response from local maritime agencies. IRGC repeats warning, follow designated route or else, authorities said as they reiterated their demand and underscored the consequences, issuing the stern warning while the ship remained beset by mechanical and navigational difficulties. Iranian state media reported that a container ship ran aground after sailing along a Hormuz route that Tehran does not designate, saying the vessel's deviation from the approved corridor directly led to its grounding and the ensuing maritime incident. According to the reports, the container ship had entered shallow waters outside the shipping route designed and enforced by Iran, exposing the vessel to uncharted hazards and complicating immediate salvage and safety efforts. State media then reiterated the IRGC's warning that vessels should only travel on the specific route approved by Iranian authorities, stressing that adherence to that corridor is mandatory for avoiding operational and legal consequences in the area. Officials noted that the route for container ships passes through the corridor south of Iran's Larak Island, identifying that passage as the intended and monitored track for commercial traffic transiting the strait. Tehran has stated that the Larak Island corridor is the sole approved entry and exit route for ships passing through the Strait of Hormuz, framing it as the only safe and recognized channel under its maritime regulations. The details of the incident were reported by the Times of Israel on July 1, providing a chronology of events and citing regional sources about the ship's grounding and the Iranian response. Meanwhile, several shipping unions continue to designate the Strait of Hormuz as a war zone, maintaining heightened advisories and operational restrictions for seafarers navigating the area amid ongoing tensions. Reports note that 2 ships were attacked recently despite the declared ceasefire between Iran and the United States, incidents that underscore the fragile security environment and persistent threats to commercial shipping. The characterization of the Strait of Hormuz as a warlike operations area was reported by Al Jazeera on July 1, which detailed the rationale and sources behind the decision to apply that label. Hormuz was first designated as a warlike operations area on March 5, marking the start of official advisories and protective measures for vessels transiting the region amid escalating hostilities. The strait's status as a war zone is set to remain in effect until July 9 and will be reassessed weekly thereafter, meaning the designation could be extended or lifted based on evolving security conditions. Under the status change, mariners operating in the designated area are paid double and receive other benefits, reflecting compensation and support measures intended to offset the heightened risk to crews and vessels. Since the war began on February 28, at least 14 seafarers have been killed and about 40 ships attacked, a grim tally that shipping authorities cite to justify extraordinary protective measures and route advisories. Iran, under the Memorandum of Understanding it signed with the United States, is reported to be preparing to slowly reopen the Strait of Hormuz, a phased approach intended to restore some commercial traffic while monitoring security guarantees. During the conflict, Iran placed sea mines in locations that only its forces are believed to know about, according to reports, creating hidden navigational hazards that complicate demoning and safe passage for international shipping. A new dispute has emerged over the future of the Strait of Hormuz after months of intense conflict in the region. According to reports, Oman has proposed a new framework under which ships would pay service fees for safe passage. The proposal follows Iran's months-long control of the strategic waterway during the recent conflict. Reports say Oman has presented the plan to the United States and several Western governments as part of a post-war arrangement. Diplomats say the current Omani proposal envisions voluntary contributions to support safe navigation through the strait. Iranian sources, however, insist that those payments should be mandatory rather than voluntary. The proposal has now become a central issue in ongoing U.S.-Iran discussions over a permanent peace agreement. Iranian officials say the era of completely free passage through the Strait of Hormuz has now come to an end. President Trump has rejected any form of shipping fees in the Strait of Hormuz, calling the idea unacceptable. Vice President J.D. Vance said Iran will not be allowed to collect tolls from commercial shipping. J.D. Vance said, and I quote, "I just want to be very clear here. This is not going to end in a place where the Iranians are collecting tolls on ships going through the Strait of Hormuz." United States still has a lot of leverage points on Iran so that the situation with the Islamic Republic ends up in a place that is good for America's objectives." Unquote. Secretary of State Marco Rubio also said Washington opposes any system that monetizes passage through the strait. U.S. officials say their goal is to restore the waterway to unrestricted navigation, as it was before the war. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi says the Strait of Hormuz will never return to its pre-war status. Deputy Foreign Minister Kazem Garibabadi says Iran will work with Oman but could also move ahead independently if needed. Iranian negotiators argue that securing the strait comes at a cost that cannot simply be ignored. European diplomats warn the new proposal could reshape global energy trade, even if the payments remain voluntary. The International Maritime Organization says voluntary contributions could be legally viable under international rules. Analysts believe Iran sees control over the Strait of Hormuz as a strategic advantage it is unlikely to give up. Meanwhile, Galibaf has warned Washington that, under the current MAO, the Strait of Hormuz remains non-negotiable for Iran.
مذاکره یک روش مبارزه است.
Negotiation is a form of combat. Even now, as we talk to America, we are dealing not with a friend, but with an oath-breaking enemy who will strike the moment an opportunity arises against us. Only those who are prepared for war can truly negotiate effectively. There are clear fissures within the U.S. administration. Rubio charts one course, Vance another. When Rubio visited Bahrain last Thursday, every move he made ran counter to our memorandum. He deliberately provoked the Gulf states again, inciting them against us over the Strait of Hormuz. We face a determined adversary in this memorandum, yet we have stood our ground. Rubio is actively pushing to revive the Washington Agreement and advance the Abraham Accords, aiming to normalize Lebanon's ties with the Zionist regime. Our memorandum, however, is explicitly designed to protect Lebanon's independence. From the moment we lifted the blockade until today, we have exported more than 40 million barrels of oil. Contrast that with the previous 50 to 60 days, when we exported not a single drop, entirely consumed by the obstacles and efforts just to reach this point. We are ready to fight, and we will fight. Yet if dialogue can advance this memorandum, we will pursue it. Know that just as Lebanon's national sovereignty is our red line, if the United States oversteps, our absolute control over the Strait of Hormuz is non-negotiable. We will secure it in the best possible way. Over the next 60 days, we will maintain services. We have finalized all legal and service arrangements with Oman, and within 30 days, we will implement them in cooperation with Oman. We refuse to accept the narrative that lifting this siege is some trivial puff of air. This is the power of the Islamic Republic. Take pride in it and stand tall. We should relieve the people's economic burdens with dignity. By God, this memorandum is the document of America's defeat. We are fully committed to this memorandum. We engage in dialogue, but if the other side refuses to implement it, we are prepared for war and will respond decisively. The situation in Lebanon is different because the Zionist regime has militarily occupied part of southern Lebanon, leading to intense clashes. Yet, since we signed the memorandum and made progress, those clashes have markedly decreased. On the diplomatic front, we are pursuing talks to implement the 5 conditions that must either be fulfilled immediately or have their implementation process launched within the timeframes set out in the memorandum, so that we can guarantee completion by the agreed deadlines. Just 48 hours ago, after 4 or 5 rounds of negotiations between Lebanon and the Zionist regime in Washington, they reached a 14-point conclusion. But the Lebanese people reject this conclusion because it violates the Lebanese constitution. In effect, Israel is officially returning to Lebanon for a second time, and a Lebanese army is being placed at the service of the Zionist regime to guarantee Israel's security.